Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Now, you may have seen on my channel, I interviewed a chap called Dan about 6 months ago, and I have interviewed people that have done carnivore for 40 years, 22 years, 15 years, 14 years, many in just a decade. I've done 4 years, and Dan today is celebrating 1 year as a carnivore. So hi, Dan.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you and looking so well. I'm going to just, for people that haven't seen your original video, I'm just going to go through a couple of questions so people know why I've asked you back. When I first met you, actually, you were talking about blood pressure problems, you had weight problems, you had anxiety, hip and back pain, knee pain, all that sort of stuff. So over the year, what's happened to you with carnivore?
I would say nothing less than an amazing transformation. I was one of your average, middle-aged males that looked to be fit, but also had plenty of belly fat and had aches and pains because of, just wear and tear athletically or through diet and lifestyle. I just wasn't getting the results I wanted. So that's why my wife actually started, as we talked before, my wife actually was on carnivore about five months, I think, before I actually committed fully in and started. I tried it for a week. I couldn't take it. I went back and I said, you know what, I'm going to make it happen this time. And I did. And it's been a year now. And I have zero regrets. I would tell people to stick in there for the long term. And it's amazing the transformation that I've seen in just skin. I feel like my skin health, how I respond to the outside environment, because I'm an outdoors guy. I love to get outside. I don't have to cake on a bunch of sunscreen now. That's another interesting benefit, I think, of carnivore in and of itself. However, I am a sunscreen believer to just protect yourself wisely and moisturize yourself, but a much different degree than what it was before. In terms of just my I've always been somebody to work out. I feel like I've had great benefits in my muscle tone and structure, of which before on all kinds of different other diets, several hours a week in the gym, different rigorous training programs and reps and weights, and was never really getting to the clarity of muscle tone and flexibility and range of movement and things like that I could get to. So I can't say enough good things about it. It's actually amazing if you can commit to it. And I think everybody responds probably differently, of which and so, yeah.
Sounds good. So, I'm going to pick up on a negative first before we go on to the positives, because you said you could not take it at first. So what was your initial problems?
Well, as I said before, I grew up, I grew up in the era of, working out and being fit and being athletic and carbing up. Carbing up was what I grew up with in the 80s when I was an athlete in high school and then into college in the 90s. And so I was always under the premise that you had to get energy and to build muscle mass, you were carbing to do that. That has been completely different. And unfortunately, I had to get to above 50 to figure that out through this. That's pretty much it. That's it in a nutshell. So, yeah.
Yeah, but that's quite common. I get that. When I'm coaching people, at least once a week, they can't get out of that habit, whether it's a habit or an addiction, or they just like the taste of something. But here you are, a year later, you've been pretty strict. And I know you just mentioned we've done this before, but there may be people never encountered you, not seen the video before. So could you just give us a premise, a sort of précis, of how much weight you've lost and the things that have improved?
Yeah, absolutely. I've lost upwards of 24 pounds. On previous diets that I've tried, sometimes I would strip down and almost starve myself, and I was depriving myself of such nutrients that I would get thinness in parts of my body and face and neck that I almost didn't want. My wife would say, you kind of look too thin, you look ill. So the thing about carnivore and the differences that I've received is that I've never once gotten to the point where I felt too frail or thin or kind of weak. That the meat and the nutrients that I was getting by eating sufficiently was giving me the protein and the energy and all the other nutrients that I needed, less all the other crazy carb stuff of which, like anybody of us, I could love a slice of pizza, a salad, and think that that's kind of great and balanced. But at the end of the day, it's got indifferences to it that now I realize after sticking with it. So
Yeah,
that
I
was
get
it. I
that.
was never really a big meat eater. So
Yeah, I get that totally because I've had that said to me when I did keto, which is not knocking keto. I definitely weighed less actually than I do now, and I looked gaunt. I really did. I just wasn't getting the nutrients. And I think my body composition has improved, even though actually I weigh slightly more. So, yeah, that sort of thing happens. What about your blood pressure?
oh wow, what a journey there. So yeah, I was at the start of this, I was on full blood pressure medicine. And my blood pressure was ranging anywhere on a good day to a bad day from 135 over like 95 or 98 um, to even higher than that. And now my average blood pressure is like in the 125 to 126 range, consistently over about 87. And I've since then literally cut my blood pressure medicine in half. And my wife keeps poking at me saying, when are you going to cut it back even further? Because I'm not quite even sure you need it anymore. But I'm very specific and I follow that. I think that'll be my next probably step there. But yeah, it was certainly high and not healthy by any means and being corrected with, pharmaceutical drugs. So.
Yes, and you've recently been to the doctor and had a yearly checkup. And I think just before recording, you told me something, and I said, "Whoa, hang on, let's hear this story and let's record it." So, yeah, just fire away about your last visit and firstly, why you were visiting and what you feel has come out of that.
Yeah. So obviously, my primary care physician was with me through the journey of the last couple of years of higher blood pressure and weight and aging and conditions, health wise, which weren't bad, but were always addressed and obviously medicated with my blood pressure medicine. And a year ago, actually 6 months ago, so I started on the diet a year ago. 6 months ago, I went in to see my doctor and I did all the blood work that you would do typically. I go in to see my primary care physician once a year, agree to get all the blood work done. They flagged me and screamed, "Oh my God, you're all your blood, all your vitals, all the 20 or 30 vitals that you can get on all the ranges for my age were exactly, I would say, in the zone that they needed to be, except for one, cholesterol." And so I got literally blown apart by my doctor about cholesterol, saying you're at high risk, you got to get this down, I need to put you on cholesterol medicine. And at that point, I was 6 months into carnivore and already seeing improvements and things. And so I didn't really follow that well. As you can imagine, in respect for my doctor, I was kind of like, I appropriately just said, I kind of disagree. And I think I'm on a path here. So we kind of argued a little bit, agreed to go another 6 months, of which I just had my following 6 month, which would have been a year now on carnivore update. I did full blood work. And the doctor also made me get a full heart scan, an MRI more or less for your heart, to look at, the heart 360 X-ray and see if there was some sort of buildup calcium that we should then be concerned with because of my heightened levels of cholesterol, which is kind of a known element and a part of the carnivore diet, which there's a lot of discussion around ongoing. And so I just had my appointment with my doctor. I didn't know what to expect, but I continued in the last 6 months to get even, I think, healthier and more fit and trim. They looked at me when I walked in and they said, "Wow, you actually look really great. Your blood work looks really good. Your cholesterol is still high, but has come down a little bit from the last time." And they kind of paused and they said, they made the comment specifically, I am actually surprised. I expected this to be a little bit different for you right now, but it's not. So I'll listen to the data. and your heart scan, they said, I think there's 20-year-olds out there that would be very lucky and would want your condition of your heart scan. And so that got the doctor to just kind of take a step back and say, okay, I see that you're getting good benefits out of this and you're hardcore carnivore. And he asked me kind of like, how hardcore carnivore actually are you? And he started to go down the path of, maybe you should dabble in a little bit of cholesterol medicine just to get those levels down. And I wasn't really quite buying it yet. So long and short, it went a lot better than I had expected. I didn't know if I was going to have to look for a new doctor after that. Because sometimes it does come to that there's such a disagreement. And if you don't follow their direction to a certain degree, they don't want to see you anymore. I'm happy for that. He's a nice guy. And he's helped me through a lot of things over the years. So all good. So we're going onward, and I'll go back and see him in another. He agreed to say, okay, well then let's start looking at your heart scan in another year. So now we'll go another 12 months and I'll do another heart scan, and I'm not remotely concerned about it. I'll just continue forward and we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah, I mean, that's a breath of fresh air, because it's, I do a lot of these interviews and I do a lot of coaching where it's not even recorded, and people tell me how great their health is and they're off medications, all the time. And the primary care physician doesn't want to know, just doesn't want to know. And this is even things like reversal of MS and reversal of bipolar. You'd think they'd want to know. Well, it's really nice that you got someone that listens to you. Okay. They've still got that standard duty of care. They've still got to talk about prescriptions, but it sounds like that person's being realistic and looking at you as a person rather than one number that needs them to do something. So I think that's really great. I will just go over a couple of other things because, like I say, people might have missed your original video. When we first met, you were talking about you felt your levels of anxiety were more manageable now. I mean, has that continued to improve?
Yeah, it totally has continued to improve. And I'll tell you, up to even now on the 12th month, I continue to feel improvement. And so and the people, obviously you yourself have been on them. This is only my first year. And I just feel like there's definite ongoing improvements with it. I think lifestyle helps. But definitely it gives you a sense of what you can see and what I've been able to achieve on this diet has been a sense of confidence that's given me, I think, health-wise, and kind of how I feel, how I look, which obviously leads to, less worrying about things that we probably shouldn't worry about, or other daily stresses that used to trigger, sensitivities in your system. They don't any longer. And so, yeah, it's an ongoing journey, but I would say it's night and day and much better. I mean, years ago, I was actually on anxiety medicine. So that was like, 10 years ago or so. And I worked to try to get off of that. And it was a tough battle, but I feel like I feel better now than I ever have. Trying to live a previous dietary structure with a balance of carbs and all the things that you're taught when you're growing up about the balance and the food chain and the pyramid and all that good stuff, thinking you're doing the right things with a fair level of physical activity, when in fact it still included a lot of stuff that was just inflaming your levels of, probably not optimum health. And therefore, for me, anxiety. My wife tells me I'm very specific, and I'm very detailed with how I feel, and I'm pretty rigid. Like, I commit to doing something for a reason. And then therefore I also have high expectations to look for a pretty good benefit and result as a payback of doing just that and living differently. So yeah, and it becomes, the more you do it, it becomes less tough, right? You get into habits, routines, you experiment with different things, right? You bridge out on your dietary restrictions, so to speak. And it becomes a way of life. But what keeps me going on it is really just the fact that you just feel better.
Yeah. And I mean, the difference between you now and 6 months is noticeable, to be honest. I mean, you rebooked for a coaching session, and then I said, oh, we must do an interview because I just feel you look better than you did 6 months ago. I know you'd improved and you'd lost weight, and there's a few other things. But I'm now looking forward to your 2-year interview, because I love a couple of things you said then. You get into habits and routines. And I think that's one of the things about carnivore. It's actually pretty easy to follow this lifestyle. And there will be people saying, yeah, but what does he do? Does he do 2 meals a day? So what is your regime at the moment?
Yeah, I'm actually on. I started trying to eat 3 meals a day, and I say trying to eat because it wasn't very successful. Because again, I was transitioning from a variety of foods to meat, eggs, and cheese for the most part, various degrees, and mostly red meat. And that was a transition. And so I could find myself eating probably 3, maybe even 4 times a day, smaller amounts, because my system was adjusting to more of a meat diet, and having not been on one for 50 plus years. And so that I've seen that evolve tremendously. And I actually got to the point now where I can sit down at a meal and I can eat more meat. I eat 2 main meals a day. Sometimes a little bit, I call it snacking, but if I snack, it'll be on carnivore beef stick or pork rinds, things like that, right? All meat-based products, and zero sugar or very, very, very little carb, if anything. And so 2 main meals. I'll have late morning, a big breakfast. I'll have 5 or 6 eggs combined with bacon. I get the thick cut bacon, throw those in the hot steamer while I cook up my eggs. And my eggs are usually sunny side up. I love them that way. And I kind of slide them down, season them up with some pepper, which is great. I don't add salt to it because I feel like I have particularly a sensitivity to salt, and I don't have a problem with dehydration. And so I get salt in the bacon and everything else that I get. Sometimes I'll throw a burger in there, a burger patty that I'll have with my eggs. And then in the evening, we'll have hamburgers, steak. Sometimes I'll throw some cheese on there. And that's pretty much it, or a piece of chicken. And that's what it is. So basically 2 main meals a day, to reasonable sizes. And then, like I said, maybe if I get, a craving or I'm kind of hungry here or there, I'll maybe have something after or before that throughout the day, but that's very random. Usually it's 2 meals a day, and I'm not hungry. I don't wake up and I'm not starving to try to just grab a box of cereal or something. You don't have that where you have headaches from not eating and things like that, which is super beneficial. I think it's one of those intrinsic benefits you get from being on this diet. It curbs your appetite to the degree where you have a couple balanced meals a day with your meat, and you go on. And I love eggs. You gotta love eggs. So eggs are my favorite. I could eat eggs all day long. So.
Yeah, eggs are fantastic. And I nearly went off on a little tangent there, but I won't. Anyway, right. So what about your wife then? So your wife's been a supporter of you doing this. Is she carnivore or ketovore? What's she doing?
Yes, no, she's full carnivore. Like I said, she was on it. She started a few months before me, and was really seeing benefits. Her benefits have been just different than mine. She never had a problem with high blood pressure, but she always, wanted fatigue, body mass index and that kind of thing. And also, like me, knee pain, hip pain, things like that you get when you age. A lot of that stuff is balanced out really well for her. And she also mentally feels better. There's a level of confidence, and you just feeling like you don't have highs and lows on, carb swings and sugar swings and things like that you have balanced. She's pretty much on 2 meals a day like me. We don't always eat together, but we're pretty much the same. 2 meals a day. Once in a while, we'll throw in a fasting. We might cut it to 1 meal a day and throw in the fasting. She's seeing great benefits. She takes the charge on it.
Now, you mentioned she had a bit of knee pain, but if I remember rightly, did you not avoid a knee operation or something? Could you just jog my memory on that?
No, I totally did. A couple of years back, I tore an ACL and ruptured my meniscus, and most painful injury I ever had. And I was against getting surgery. And so I kind of chose to rehabilitate it on my own. and I could to a certain degree. And I'll tell you, the last year on carnivore, because of my weight loss, because of just, I think what it's done to my system to repair itself, it's almost back to a full range of motion, surgery free. I'm not out playing volleyball again because I don't want to do that. If I did, I'd wrap it up. But I do all the activities. I ride bike. I run if I want to. I walk a lot with my wife. Yeah, so we live. And it was really good to do that. And I think it's helped both her and I, and me in particularly, with my injury there, which would have been, I've heard people tell me that they've just had to result and get surgery done in a couple of years. Otherwise their meniscus and their knee, and their range of motion and their pain in there, if you've never had it, it feels like there's like a boa constrictor wrapped around your mid part of your leg. It affects circulation. It affects mobility. It's just not comfortable and not a way to live your life. So, but that is remotely, for the most part, gone away, surgery free. I feel like at some point it might even heal my ACL to some degree. And they say some of that's possible, but ACLs do adhere themselves again. They're like rubber bands to a degree that will help me even get more stability in there. But it's not like I have a lack of stability with it anymore.
That's cool. And you had hip pain, didn't you? I think you had hip and back pain as well. Is that completely gone?
Yeah, I grew up with back pain, and then I acquired hip pain just, I think, through the years of getting a little bit older. And yes, that is for the most part gone. I couldn't take walks, and within, a block or so, I would be having to limp a certain way or slow down and try to get my knee back into alignment for a range of motion that could carry me through the rest of the walk. So and it's just, it happens automatically. It's ironic, I have to tie it to some degree because it's happened that way. Yeah.
Cool. Now, this is a real conversation. We don't script it. So I'm going to ask a question you're not expecting. So what did you think of coaching? What did you think of having a coaching session with me?
Oh, I think it's phenomenal. Hey, you're a great guy, good personality. You're totally open to as you call it, like it's a discussion. It's a discussion with somebody that has knowledge about what you're trying out, what you're experimenting, what to expect, what not to expect, how to feel. And I think that's important when anybody is trying something different to better themselves. It's all about yourself. It's all about making yourself better, improving your lifestyle, making a commitment. You're the most important factor. And to have coaching and guidance every so often, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, your 12-month mark or beyond. I'll definitely continue to talk to Stephen here. And I think it's just, if anything, the most important thing I get out of it, because you'll continue to get contradictory information from around you, whether in social media or from your doctors. It's reassurance. It's another data point and another input, another consultation. It gives you reassurance to think about this, think about that. And this is not scripted at all. And I will emphasize that, even though it might come across, if it does come across that way, I apologize, but it's really not. I'm just passionate about it. And I've always said from day one, when Stephen asked me what I want to talk to him more, I said, I'm happy to. And however I can talk to people and help other people through the journey and consideration and coaching, I'm happy to do so.
And has that happened? Have you seen people around you ask you about this way of eating, and are they showing interest?
Yeah, a lot of interest. A lot of people are like, wow. We met with a couple that we meet with maybe twice a year at best. My wife's best friend and her husband. And the guy, when we met with them, was just looking at me and he couldn't stop staring at me. He's like, you just look great. And I'm like, what, really? He's like, yeah, you just look really good and healthy. And I said, okay. I hadn't seen him in like 8 months. And they were talking about, what's going on in their life. And I'm talking about mine or whatever. And so, yeah, you get into that discussion around, well, what are you doing differently? And it takes you into that, well, I'm on a diet. Here's the diet. Have you ever heard of this? Yeah, I've kind of heard of it. What's it like? And you go down that path. And so, it makes for a lot of good table discussion. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's I always warn people about is not becoming the person that instigates the conversation. You're not out there trying to convert people. You let people come to you. It's like the old joke, how do you know someone is a vegan? Because they tell you, right? You don't want to be that person, but
yeah, totally.
That's what I say. You start to be the example, and people will come up to you. So the reason I'm saying this, Dan, is because people that watch this, maybe they're sitting on the fence, or maybe they're struggling because they want to do it, but socially they don't feel comfortable. And I had this actual phrase said. I sat down in a restaurant, and my wife's daughter pointed to me and said to the server, "He's the weird one," right? So, I'm used to it. That is great. I mean, great that you look so good. Great that you've been an example. I love the fact that people are coming to you. I'm going to ask you for some sage advice then. So there may be some people sitting on the fence watching this or listening to it on the audio podcast. If they're on the fence about being carnivore, have you got any advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're struggling with some things and dabbling in it, right? The reality is, in my experience personally, I could never get the results I really felt I wanted, even though sometimes I don't have the heart in it to commit to it and do it and give it the time and give it the discipline. I would say, try to figure out really what are the blockers for you, like mentally, physically. What are the things that are keeping you from going? And I would say all in, because if you're going to do it, you got to kind of go in and you start to see some benefits, but you're only going to see certain benefit from that. I think it's about really understanding the specifics of what your blockers are, and trying to, maybe through even coaching or talking to your spouse or friends or others about it, seeking, their input and guidance. Be open to it, and just try to get yourself more knowledgeable of what those blockers are and why. And perhaps you'll find yourself beyond those when you blink and look back. And it'll be an organic transition for you. It'll happen naturally. You'll see and feel benefits early on, both short and long term, and that'll get you off and running. And I think that's the people that you got to get to the point where we can all come up with excuses every day or reasons as to why we won't or don't want to do something. But if you keep seeing that there's value potentially in it and it could be upside for you personally, don't give up. I just say, just don't give up, continue to explore, continue to seek to understand. And I think that's the best thing you can do, to the point where ultimately you're comfortable with it. And you want to get to that point where you're comfortable. And when you're comfortable, then you can commit, I think. And so that's a journey. It doesn't happen to everybody the same way. So.
Do you still research it? Do you still look at YouTube and look at any influencers?
I always do. Yeah. I'm following a bunch of people, including yourself, online. And so, yeah, when you guys post stuff, I'm always looking at it. I will forever be looking at it, because I feel like there's ongoing insights. And the reality is, it's not like you can, as convinced and committed as you are, I would say this, you can't always just assume that, okay, that's going to take me forward forever. We all need ongoing positive reinforcement and insight, which is why the coaching's good, which is why the engagement with other information and ongoing, developments and ongoing success stories and reality to hearing from other people through their journey. It's always positive, because you're always going to continue to hear new things. And it's that reinforcement that we all need. You're going to need reinforcement. As sold as you get to some degree on something, you're still going to need reinforcement, whether that's every day for a while or every month or every 3 months. Do that to yourself. Make yourself susceptible to reinforcement. And to that point, it's engaging in the media and people within this, within this diet and this lifestyle, in order to be a part of it. You want to be a part of the community to the degree that you're comfortable. So.
Who are you looking at? Got any names off the top of your head of people that you think are particularly good?
Yeah, well, I tell you, our favorite is the well-known Dr. Chafee. To be quite honest, like I've looked at a lot of his stuff. He's talked to a lot of different doctors online. I know he's spoken at a lot of different conferences and things. And so utmost respect for his engagements, the quality and what you really get out of it. It's like this stuff, like you guys aren't scripted. You're just trying to get out there reality, the situations and reality to people, and talking to professionals in the field to various degrees. And one of the favorite ones was when he had talked to, actually, I live in Florida in the US, and one of the doctors that Dr. Chafee had on one day was a heart surgeon in Florida. And so I said, oh yeah, I'm going to watch this one. And they talked about cholesterol levels, and all the people that typically wind up on the operating table are not the people with the conditions that people get all flared up about because of carnivore. And so it's this opposite thing that but I'll tell you, as much as I see it and believe it in myself, which I'll get back to, it's that reinforcement thing. It really helps to stay involved, continue to hear, and continue to educate yourself, as things ebb and flow, because it will happen. You'll have good days and bad days, good months and bad months. But overall, I think to stay engaged with the positives of the people. So Dr. Chafee's a popular of ours. Both my wife and I, we get a lot of things from him, and we watch him on occasion. So.
Yeah, good name there. And the heart surgeon you're talking about is Dr. Philip Avadia, by the way. And I've interviewed him on my channel. And I'm going to point here because I'm going to have I've spoken to Dr. Chafee, and you can click on this bit. So I'm going to put that in afterwards, Dan, of the video with Dr. Chafee, which is very popular because he is a great influencer. So you just have to click that there.